the iris, it's like a muscle that contracts around this cavity. So this will be the iris. And on top of that, we have like this dome-shaped lens. And it's not really a lens, like the lens of the eye is actually inside the eye, which is something different. But it's kind of a protective layer that goes on top of the eye. So basically what happens is
Hello and welcome back to Magma Classroom. We've got another exciting edition with our instructor, Udi Kalmanovitz. Udi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, man?
Very good, very good. So apologies for the delay. We're just getting started over here. So just a quick reminder before we jump into this session, for those that are here, those that are watching post this live stream, these canvases are available to edit, particularly when it comes to providing or getting feedback from Udi. So as he's going through the lecture, you'll see that there's canvases below that are available to join. So you can jump in. The information's in the YouTube description. If you're in Discord, the links are also available in the Discord event. So please feel free to jump in. And otherwise, Udi will be going through a lecture, which is going to run for about 45 minutes. And then once the lecture is done, we'll come and take a look at what everybody else has been doing on the canvas, and he might jump around and take a look at your work and have a quick conversation. So we definitely would love to see more people participating in these canvases. So feel free to jump in. And so I know, Udi, today we've kind of been breaking down the character bit by bit. We've covered the eyes, we've covered the ears, we've covered the head in general, heading into the mouth. Mouth and lips, do you refer to those as two different things or one thing?
Actually, I refer to them as two different things. I do just for a sec need to collaborate my pen because I had a few updates today and I see my pen is not collaborated.
Oh yeah, do your thing. I'll keep rambling on.
So So I'm stopping. I'll stop share for just a bit. And fix this issue, and then we can carry on.
Okay. So as we're kind of evaluating and going through the different aspects of the character, Udi has also delivered a great lecture and a great video, a live stream that was focused on developing just sort of proportions and dealing with character design overall. But I think when it comes to, as we continue to focus on these specific topics of the character, there's so much more to cover when it comes to character design and different variation and stylization. So as we wrap up all the major aspects of the head that make up the face, the goal here is to keep moving forward with character design and move on to that next stage. So we're getting very close here to the final sort of components that make up the face and the head, and there'll be a lot more to talk about in streams to come on this topic.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm done. Sorry about it.
And no worries at all. Take it away when you're ready.
Let's share it again. Okay, I think I'm good. Oh yeah. Okay. So I can't concentrate in two things simultaneously. So did I miss anything?
No, not at all. Neither can I. So no worries at all. I think some people have commented on this, turning on the sequence panel. I think it helps seeing the sequence panel so people see that there's canvases available to jump in there. Yeah, we're keeping the canvases separated, so we're leaving more screen space for each artist to work, as opposed to some of our other classrooms where we might sometimes collaborate on one canvas. So feel free to jump in there. And go ahead, man. Take it away.
So you actually asked an interesting question about, do I see the lips and the mouth as the same subject or two different subjects? So I actually, when I teach, I refer to the mouth as three different subjects. So one is actually like drawing the lips, which basically is drawing like a closed mouth. The second is drawing an open lips, but the jaw is closed. So that means, like, let's say I draw the Hulk or Wolverine. So I show my teeth like this, but I don't open the jaw. And the third will be an open jaw. Now, the reason I separate the two open mouths, like the open lips and open jaw, is because, first of all, when I open the lips, I don't see actually the inside of the mouth. I only show the teeth. But more important than that, I don't change the structure of the head. Like the head is in the same proportions because I just moved the lips and I didn't move the jaw. Once we move the jaw, it's important to note and to be aware that actually the proportion and the structure of the head is changing. Like the head basically becomes longer. Let's say I must warn everybody, I'm going to do a lot of faces this stream. So uh, you've been warned. But let's say like I'm putting the hand like right now on the bottom of my chin, and everybody can try it like for himself, but you will be surprised like how much you add to the length of the head or the face once you open like the widest mouth, yeah, you possibly can. So let's say that my hand is here, and I know personally that when I open like the biggest mouth I can, is like I will get like my bottom teeth to the same place where my chin was. So if my hand is here, or I'll grab maybe something that will be easier to see. So I grab like this red pen, so it's right here, and then I open the mouth and it goes like, so the chin goes way down. And for me personally, my bottom teeth goes to where my chin was. So that's actually like, it's totally changing like the height or the length of the head, and it's something that we should be aware of. So I actually tackled this in like three different subjects. So first and foremost, let's start with an open, with a closed mouth, which basically is drawing the lips. I will now and then close like the panel of the canvases, just because it won't so it won't distract me. But be aware it's there. I will show it from now and then, and every now and then, and you can feel free to jump in, grab a canvas, and I will visit you later on. So let's basically draw the lips like a simple lips, the way we imagine them. Uh, and I want to get something out of the way. So let's say that I'm doing something very like crude, and I draw the lips like this, and kind of the way we imagine lips, right? Now, basically, we can say that these lips are composed of three different lines. So we have the top line, the middle line, and the bottom line. And what I want to emphasize or show is actually goes like it's more relevant to where we want to simplify characters and then maybe do cartoon characters. And we're working with outlines and line art for like more simplified characters. So let's say that I want to simplify the lips and I want to like remove some of the detail or some of the lines. So the first question is, which line of the three lines is the most important line? And the question is obviously, is that middle line. Basically, the middle line where the lips meet, that's like the opening of the mouth. This is the mouth cavity. So if I'm drawing a character, and basically if I remove the middle line, then I don't have a mouth, or then I have like an open mouth, right? Uh, I can actually draw a character where I draw only the middle line without showing the upper lip or without showing the bottom lip, and I'll still have the feeling or the notion that I can see the mouth, right? So here I can actually like give a little hint of a bottom lip, and maybe I want to hint on the top lip, but we will talk about it separately because it kind of changes the way we basically look at those lips. So once we are working with lines, um, we need to take into consideration, and it's not only goes to like drawing lips and mouths, it's in drawing with lines and with line art in general. Uh, Sometimes the line we use or the details we choose to put on our drawing give a different feeling than what we intend. And the reason being is that basically when we look at stuff, we can say that we see lines, and we also see like values and different shapes and different tones, right? If we take like a real life image and we turn it maybe to black and white, we can see also lines. I can see my contour, but I can see shapes and different tones. And once I'm drawing with line art, basically I'm limiting myself. And every time we draw or paint, we're basically creating an illusion. We're using line and different shapes to create an illusion. And once I'm using only lines, I'm limiting myself. And then I need to really consider how I communicate the things I want to communicate. So, for instance, let's say that I want to draw a simple mouth, and let's say I want to draw a male character, and you can see it a lot in comics, different comic heroes and superheroes, comic characters, and maybe animated series characters. So let's say I'm drawing like this middle line, which will be the mouth cavity, and I'll give like a small dent here and there. And then I want to give a small hint to the bottom lip. And now I will decide that right about here, I will basically mark the nose of my character. So that will be like the marking of the nose. So basically, we can kind of get a feeling of, okay, I can get a feeling of the character's mouth and nose. And, but what happens when I decide to mark the upper lip as well? Once I decide to also mark the upper lip, suddenly those lips look a little bit more feminine. And why is that basically? And you can see like a lot of different comic artists when they draw, I don't know, they draw Superman. So they draw the mouth and they don't mark the upper lip, or they leave like a very very subtle hint to it. So why is that basically? So we need to understand that when we use lines, our lines can give different connotation and associations, and not always look like the things that we actually want to convey. So we look at the person and we say, okay, I can see a bottom lip, I can see an upper lip. So we usually draw what we know, but we need to take into consideration that sometimes when we emphasize something, it gives a different feeling to what we're doing, and we need to be aware of it. The way we can actually handle those things, not only with mouths, like in general, is like try to basically hint at something, but drawing something else, or by drawing something next to it. For instance, if I drew the upper lip, if I drew the upper lip, let's say that this is his upper lip. Now I know that the thickness of this upper lip is from here to here, right? This is the thickness of the upper lip. What if instead of drawing the upper lip, I will draw like the small dent we have between the lips and the mouth? Once I draw like this small dent between the lips and the mouth, like our imagination will kind of complete the upper lip as well. Because once we see this dent, we already know that like here, the upper lip will reach like this marking here, and I can already see like the thickness of the upper lip. So basically, what I've done is like I kind of hinted to the upper lip, and I didn't draw it. I hinted to the upper lip by drawing something that is like next to it, or something that is like uh, uh, I don't know, like really touching it, or marking the width of it. And we can do it like in many different cases when we draw. Like instead of actually drawing the thing that we want to draw, we can hint in different ways. And I also want to share with everybody who's watching something that I kind of find out for myself, which was a great help for me to actually simplify things. So back like a long time ago, when I drew, I used to draw a lot of like superheroes, and I always like to draw like really muscular guys, and basically I drew like a lot of details. Like I drew like all the different muscles, and then you can see the veins and the different like fibers in the muscles. And I always ended up with like a drawing that has so many details. It looked like stacked. It looked like really too busy and too stacked. And I looked at like different artists, like the way they approach line art, and I felt like, how do they succeed to convey the same amount of details, but they're using less lines? They don't use as much lines as I used to use, but they still convey the same amount of detail. So that's basically like the key to nailing it, is basically to understand that instead of drawing the entire shape, you draw just a part of this shape, but which part of the shape we're drawing. So take a look at this. Let's say I want to draw a simple rectangle, right? And then a simple square. And then I have two options. I can draw only like the different edges without drawing the angles, the corners. Or I can draw the corners and basically remove the edges. Now, which one will convey the shape of the square better? And I guess that you're all thinking that this one will convey the shape of the square better. And there's actually like logic behind it. So what happens is that when we draw only the edges, the edge doesn't give us too much information. This edge can actually go on and go on there. And this edge, maybe it goes and create a different shape. Okay? I don't really know where this edge will end up. Maybe it will end up like like that. But once I draw the angle, each angle gives more information. It basically also show me where the shape changes. So it also show me that this edge will go here, this edge will go here, and it shows me where the angle, the shape changes, and this shape will go, this edge will go here, while this edge will go here. So it actually kind of give me the same information I get here, plus more information or where I have the shape changing. So what we can actually draw from that is where whenever we want to draw a shape and kind of simplify it and use like small hints and not actually draw the entire shape, most of the time it will be better to draw the corners, to draw the places where the shape changes angles or have different changes to the shape, and not actually drawing the long lines. Okay, and it goes actually to anatomy as well. So let's say, imagine, I know that I'm like digressing from drawing the mouth, but it's like a concept that goes to drawing line art entirely. So let's say I'll create a new layer for this. Imagine that I want to actually draw, like, let's say, a torso, the anatomy of a torso. So what if I will do that? I will create very quick, like a very quick marking for a torso anatomy or something like that. Okay, very simple. And let's say that this is the torso I want to create, right? Now, let's duplicate it. So let's put one over here, and I will duplicate this layer, and I put one over here, and let's merge it down, and I will take the opacity down. Now, let's go over those lines, and in one torso, I will grab like the lines themselves, like where the line is long. So it's kind of more intuitive because you feel like you're losing less detail, but it's actually the opposite. So let's say I'm doing this. Go. Okay, let's say. Uh, 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 oh, I duplicated the same layer. Let's create a new one. Okay. So let's say I'm doing this and then this, and then I'm taking this line, and then I'm taking this line, and I'll take the middle of the clavicle, and I'll take the middle of every line here. So basically, I'm grabbing the middle of the lines, right? And I'm not connecting the lines, but I'm just taking the middle. And I'm kind of losing, I decided not to go and create like those connections or the corners. And on the other torso, I will do the opposite. Or as I showed before, I will say, okay, what if I'll take only the corner here and the corner here? And here I will take this corner, and I'll take this corner. And I'll do the same here. This is where the line is more important. This is where I get like the changes of the angle. Maybe. And let's say with the abs, I can go and grab those tiny corners instead of taking the lines where basically they are longer. So what you will notice is that actually I can use kind of the feeling of less lines, but I can show actually like the shapes better. Now, it's not that you can't do the middle of the shape or the middle of the line. It's not black and white, it's not A or B, but it's just a concept and something to be aware of. So sometimes when you want to simplify something, or you want to remove a little bit of your lines and make your drawing breathe a little bit more, uh, take into consideration that most of the time, showing actually the angles of the shape and where the shape changes, you give more information about this shape. You basically you keep more information about this shape. So that's something that is nice to know. So it actually goes back to the example I gave here. So by doing like this small dent here, I basically was able to show the thickness of the mouth without the upper lip, without actually drawing the entire upper lip. Okay, if for instance I want to basically remove it. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of the lips. So there is something that I kind of like doing, is it's like drawing a band-aid. And I imagine that I take this band-aid and I kind of like stick it on the skull, or the shape of the head. And then it shows me the curvature of the lips. But first, let's talk a little bit about like basic proportions. So I guess with most people, and also I believe it depends, we spoke about it many times, on where in the world you're at. But let's say that the bottom lip will be a little bit thicker than the upper lip. And it can be also the opposite. But what I want to create is like a very simple shape where I divide it, like, let's say right now 50-50, right in the middle. And then I will divide our shape to 3/3. So they kind of need to be exact, but it's not like super important. And the logic behind what I'm doing is that we will put the, like, let's say the dent of the upper lip right in the middle, right here, in the middle third. And I can already take the same shape or the same dent and kind of use it again here. And then we will create or finish the upper lip. Now, notice something about the difference between the upper lip and the bottom lip. So with the upper lip, I'm taking those 2 points right on the borders of the middle third. When I draw the bottom lip, I kind of want to make like those angles a little bit wider. So I will actually take them a little bit wider. So I'll take the bottom lip right here. So those points are located here, while the bottom lip will be a little bit wider and the points will be located a little bit like in the outer thirds. So that will already give us like a nice contrast and the difference between the shape of the upper lip and the bottom lip. Now you can play around with the thickness, like creating the bottom lip a little bit thicker. Maybe you want to create the upper lip thicker. But let's say we take that as like some kind of a base. Now, let's say we want to know, or we want to draw the lips in perspective. What basically we do, or we need to take into consideration, is that the lips are not like, they are not placed on a flat plane. So if we'll take our finger and put our finger like on our lips, we will kind of feel the curvature of the lips. And the lips are going like around our teeth, and the shape of our teeth is kind of shaping the curvature of our lips. Someone that has like more protruding teeth might have like a bit like a deeper curvature to his lips. So the way I approach it is like I'm taking the same shape that we use, and I kind of imagine it as a band-aid. And I'll give it like a small curvature, and let's place it like that. Now I can also divide it the way I want. If I want to make let's say that here the upper lip will be a little bit thinner, just a tad. And then we can see like this shape is facing this direction. And I also want to divide it, like this will be like the middle of the shape. If you want to identify where is the middle of this shape, try to find in your eye like the peak of the curvature. What I mean by the peak of the curvature, imagine you have a ruler. I got one here. Imagine you have a plastic ruler and you start bending this plastic ruler. The peak of the curvature is where this plastic ruler will break, right? So if I'm creating, let's say, a curve like that, or a curve like this, or a curve like this, so we can say that this curve will probably break here. This curve will probably break here. This curve will probably break here. So whenever you put something that is curved and you put it like in perspective, in an angle, you can find the peak of this curve, and then basically you find the middle of this shape. So once I got the shape, I marked the middle, then I want to be aware of the thirds. So I got one here, and let's say that those markings are marking the thirds that we marked before. Now I can basically place the lips on this curvature, but I don't want to draw the lips like they are flat. It's not a sticker. So basically what I want to avoid, I will do it right now by purpose, but let's say I'm basically taking the same lines and I say, okay, this line goes here, this line goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here. And basically what I'm doing is I'm copying the lines, but I created like a flat lips. They're flat. What I do want to do is, like, while I'm placing those lips on this band-aid, I want to take into consideration like the volume lines, the different volume lines of the lips. So let's say mm, let's say that right now I will take like this dent, but I will take this dent and I taking it a little bit further. You see, I didn't put the middle of the dent like in the middle of the band-aid, because I imagine that I have like this dent going outside. And from here, I will imagine like a small, I will do it actually in a separate layer, and let's do it with a different color. So I will imagine that I have like this volume line that goes inside and shows me like the fullness of the lip. And then I will imagine that I have another volume line showing me like the bottom lip. And again, I will have another line here and another line here and another line here, and so forth and so on. So I will lower the opacity of those lines, and I will grab this color again and go back here. So now when I can imagine like those volume lines, I can actually say, okay, like this part is actually should be like curved a little bit and facing more to the outside. And now I can imagine that the bottom lip is going a little bit outwards. And the reason that I do it is because let's say that I don't see like the other corner of the lips. Maybe like the curvature is kind of hiding like the farther corner, right? So basically it's those volume lines that show me how I want to finish how will I want to finish like the lip itself. Sometimes I see the corner, sometimes I kind of want to actually cut it, but I will cut it by the volume lines. Like the volume lines are showing me how the contour will be if I'm hiding one side of the lips. So we can actually see it better if I'll create another band-aid and I'll give it like a more angle to it. So let's say I will make it face. I will make it face it like this angle. Now you can see that I actually took like the righter side of the band-aid and I put it like all the way in the back. So it's like it goes all the way in the back. And once I imagine like the shape, like doing this curvature, then I know for sure that I won't see like the other side of the lips because it goes to the other side of the head. So let's mark the middle. This is the middle. This is our third. And now we can say, okay, so let's put like this here. And I can go by the volume lines that I imagine and then kind of get a feeling of how I want to basically cut the shape of the lips. And if I kind of wanted to see the other corner, it will actually be here. It will twist or bend to the other side. So this is how I approach like if I want to know if I see like the other side of the lips, I don't see the other side of the lips. I kind of imagine the curvature and I imagine like the different volume lines that goes here. And those lines basically they show me how I want to cut the shape. Now, what you can do to actually practice it is drawing this band-aid in all kind of different angles. And like if we're talking about realistic lips, we need to take into consideration that sometimes the upper lip will be more protruding than the bottom lip. Sometimes the bottom lip for different people will be more protruding than the upper lip. Once we're looking at the head from the bottom or from the top, then one lip will kind of like hide or conceal the lip that's behind her. So let's try and do another angle so it will be clearer. So let's say that I'm doing this angle right here. And let's take another angle that will be right here. And something that is important to note, you don't want to make this band-aid to practice it and make it too curved. I don't do it like that. Okay? It's not that curved. I mean, maybe you can if you have like a certain character where you exaggerate different things. But kind of you need to kind of get a feeling to the curvature of the lips. You can actually feel it with your hand. So if I have this angle, I'm taking into consideration perspective, which means the bottom lip is right now closer to me. Then it means like this part will appear bigger, and in perspective here the upper lip will appear bigger. And then I can take into consideration like which one will basically hide the other. So right here, I will actually draw the bottom lip first. And the reason I'm drawing, obviously you can also mark the middle and mark those thirds, which I kind of skipped because I imagined them. But here I will go and mark the bottom lip first. because this bottom lip will actually hide the upper lip behind it. So I will be able to see the upper lip right here. And if we imagine like the volume lines of it, then it goes like that and like that, right? Like that and like that. And the bottom lip is closer to us, so I kind of put it in front of the upper lip. And if I'm doing like, then here, I might want to use the upper lip, kind of hide the bottom one.
I just want to say this use of geometry is so cool. Like as a planar sort of study, as a way to visualize that wrapping shape is very interesting.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it. So when I draw faces, it's not that I draw like this geometry on the face itself. You can, obviously. I feel like there's no need to. You can. It really depends on like the size of the head I'm drawing. Like, let's say I'm drawing a full body character and the head will be kind of small. So I won't be able to draw every little guideline that I want. But I feel like that taking this geometry and putting the lips as an exercise will basically train you to see this curvature and kind of see the thirds and be able to imagine them. So when I draw a character, this is what I'm imagining. Like I can actually see it like in my mind's eye, and then it becomes like automatic. It's becomes
Right.
second nature.
It's similar to the concept when you're sculpturally kind of getting into these topics. Why many sculptors, one of the first things that you do outside of just repeatedly sculpting hands and things like that is doing the planar studies of the face, like breaking down planes and trying to evaluate the sort of contour and that shape and how it sits at different angles. It is training you to see it in a certain way. It, as you say, you're not necessarily drawing it that way, but it helps identify certain characteristics and kind of lock it into memory, it seems.
Yeah, because when you draw from imagination, you're doing two things. Now, every person, every artist is somewhere in a scale of like drawing from memory. Like drawing from memory is drawing from imagination as well. And drawing from memory, it's kind of similar to drawing from observation. But instead of observing an image, I kind of holding the image in my mind's eye, right? But like drawing from memory, it's like I'm actually trying to imagine the contours and the angles. So it's one thing. So when everyone that draws from imagination, there is drawing from memory on one side, and on the other side, there will be like drawing more, let's say, analytically. So if thinking about perspective, if thinking about volumes, if thinking about vanishing point and angles and planes and different things. So I believe that in order to get better in drawing from imagination, you kind of need to nurture both approaches, because eventually you're doing both of them. Even for me, where I more tend to be more analytical in my approach, I also it you can't ignore it, you can't stop it. You observe things all the time, and you do remember like different details and the way different people look and the way your face is looking. So you can't really like ignore it. But basically, when you're drawing, you kind of mix what you remember with your ability to kind of plan and structure things like more systematical way.
Yeah. It almost seems like when you get into those good flow states where just everything's making sense, it's ultimately just you channeling both of those brains. Like in the way where you can balance them, because a lot of times it's sometimes one or the other. Sometimes it's so super creative and wild where you just kind of let it go and you get to exercise that. But to develop a design takes somewhat of an analytical approach on some level, maybe not as methodical for all folks, but the thought process requires like step one, step two is kind of to see the entire timeline almost and plot out your route before you kind of jump in and just start throwing stuff down. And every once in a while, yeah, the Kim Jong Gis that just flow stuff out, and you don't even know what's going on in their brain. It's fascinating to watch how different people apply different
Yeah,
approaches.
I think like Kim Jong Il, like he used to say that every time he draw something, he like in his mind's eye, he sees it inside a box. He like sees everything like inside boxes, and that's basically what gives him the like the notion of the perspective is trying to convey. Um, and I feel like there is like again there is drawing from memory, and obviously he had like a genius visual memory, uh, but there is also the ability of like seeing those guidelines, seeing those vanishing points, and seeing them in your mind's eye. So it's not like you're not using the analytical approach. You just become so good at like it's like having rulers, like transparent rulers in your mind where you can place them and measure them,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So I actually came across a nugget of information which was interesting, that apparently when we look at when we look at stuff, there is one place, like when we see like a certain object, like there is a place in our brain that basically kind of it sees like the bigger shape, and there is a different area in the brain that analyzes like the small fine details. And that actually it made it kind of click for me and made a lot of sense, in a way that you're like in drawing and painting, you're always starting with the bigger shape first, and then you're going like deeper and deeper into creating those details. And you're always being taught that it like focus like on getting a good silhouette, which is actually like the bigger shape. And when you're creating characters, you're looking at the shape of the head and the shape of the torso and the shape, and then only you're going into to the fine details. And it's kind of interesting, like to see where your like the way our brain kind of analyzes different things, and it's kind of like a scientific approach to drawing, I guess.
absolutely. No, for sure. And it's funny. The last thing I'll comment before I'm distracting you, but I think these are great points. Mountain Pirate, by the way, looks like I had to head out, but thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you jumping in here and putting stuff on the canvas. Just the idea of thinking about those things, like for me, sometimes when it comes to these things, ignorance is bliss, where um, analyzing too much becomes immobilizing. And I think some
Totally.
of us have the ability to be super analytical and apply, and aren't hindered by that sort of mental space. But for me, it's like it becomes a huge blocker, and I start to think about too much, and then I it's more so just wasting time kind of thing, where you just kind of you take so long to get there instead of just kind of flowing through it. And that's an interesting subject in itself, which is a can of worms that we don't have to open, but worth mentioning.
Yeah, you know that every time you're being taught something new, that let's say you already did something, right? You have the way you approach drawing. You draw lips in a certain way, and then someone teaches you like a different, not only different approach. He- Let's say he shows you something that is more correct, and you know that it's more correct, and then you try it, and you actually become worse. It takes you longer time, and you actually achieve like lesser results. And it kind of always happen like 99 of 100 times, and there is logic behind that as well. Imagine that you have a person running. He never thought on how to run, he just runs, right? Then he has like a professional trainer say that you need to land with this part on the foot and be in exact this angle, and kind of really meticulously like dissecting each and every step. And this person will then try it and he will run slower. And every time, basically, someone kind of resets the way you do stuff, it will take you to a few steps back. So it's something that I tell my students all the time, that like once you've been shown like a new way to approach something, you kind of need to expect to actually take a few steps back, because it kind of resets everything you're doing. And then you not only get to the same point, you will probably become better, but you kind of need to expect like these resets and like this a little bit, so it won't be frustrating.
That's a good example. I was just watching a documentary on. I've been caught up on basketball lately. I watched a whole series on Michael Jordan, and I just watched a series on the USA in the Olympics when after they lost 2 years in a row, and they realized how much they didn't understand the game by just slight variations in the rules that were different from the NBA to the world court and were playing against other countries, and how challenging it was for them to adapt just because of those tiny little things that were introduced into their game and their flow. And it took 2 years for these guys to play together and figure that out and adjust and update their strategy before it clicked. And then boom, they just obliterate again, and it turns into, like the old school USA. So it's so funny how that is, how true that is, and how much it resonates in life in general, in terms of new information and what it does for us.
Yeah. So let's carry on and talk about a little bit like the volume of the lips. So I want to show it one more thing here, is that basically, and it goes a little bit more if you want to render the lips and kind of give volume to it, and shade it maybe a little bit. So basically, when we think of the volume of the lips, we break the upper lip into three different shapes. So we have like the middle shape right here, and we can actually imagine this shape like it has volume to it, right? And we have another two small shapes in the sides. Now, those shapes will be more evident on some people and less evident on other people. So you won't always see all those shapes. It's just like different details in anatomy. On some person you see the cheekbones, on other you don't. On some person you can see actually the dent in the middle of the nose, and on different person you won't. And the bottom lip will actually divide it to two shapes, two different shapes. Okay, so we think of these as volume shapes. And that means that basically, if I want to show all those details, it kind of helps me to know where are the dents and where are the peaks, uh, where are the peaks and valleys of the human lips. Now, let's talk a little bit about opening the lips and start showing the teeth. But I will also take a few minutes to talk about the teeth in general, because if you start showing the teeth, you kind of want to know like how our teeth like is structured. And it's important to also mention that when simplifier doing cartoons, um, there is like different ways to draw or paint the teeth, and sometimes we can see characters that only like all our teeth are connected together to this one big piece. And sometimes we can see like actually the different teeth. Usually, I suggest if you're drawing with line art that you don't really want to show like all the spaces between the teeth because it becomes too distracting. It's like too much detail in one area. So usually we will kind of try to hint at those borders between one teeth and the other instead of actually drawing all those separations. So let's say I I draw an open mouth and it just opens a little bit, right? And let's give a small hint to the bottom lip and maybe a small hint to the upper lip. So that will be like my open mouth. Let's grab it and put it here. And imagine that I'm right now, I will do like show this teeth and this one, and I'm actually seeing each and every teeth. And it becomes kind of distracting. It's like it takes all the focus. And the reason it takes all the focus is because you have like so much detail in one small area. And then it like create like this big contrast. And contrast will always draw the viewer's eye. So how basically, or how can I show the separation between those teeth and not actually draw it? We can actually show it by just using the contour. So let's say I'm drawing like the shape of this teeth and this one and this tooth and this one, and then another one here and another one here. And once I do that, I will also give a small hint of maybe the tongue showing here, and I can grab my favorite tool. Okay, and basically, even if I only show like the separation between those teeth only in the contour, the viewers will kind of complete like the entire image in his imagination, because again we kind of give a hint by drawing something else. Sometimes we can draw like, let's say I'm drawing like an open mouth, let's say I'm drawing like the Hulk, and I'm drawing like this big wide open mouth, and I'm drawing like the teeth here, and I can show the separation also by giving a small hints of the contour, but I can also like hint at the separation but drawing the gums. So whenever I see like those little pointy things, I know that right here there is a separation between one tooth and the other. So again, I'm kind of using different things to hint at those shapes, and not not actually doing like, imagine like you see this mouth, or you see this, and then it becomes like so detailed and so distracting, and usually it's kind of too much. You need to look at the entire face and see like how the details are kind of spreaded on the face, and kind of try to get an even spread, I guess. and not focus all the details in one area, unless you want to take the focus there. So let's say creating a more detailed eye might be a good idea. Maybe I want to take the viewer's attention to the eyes of the characters first, but usually not so much with the teeth. So that's one thing. And in order to draw teeth in different styles and different ways, we need kind of to memorize like the order and the alignment of the different teeth. And it's actually kind of easy. What you want to do is mostly memorize like the front six teeth. And why is that? It's because we have like on the upper jaw and the bottom jaw, we have like the front six teeth, and then after basically we have our fangs, behind our fangs, which is like the first and the sixth, basically then our teeth changes angle inside, and then we got like, I don't remember the word in English. How do you call the teeth like in the back, which are more flat?
Molars,
Molars, thank you.
molars, wisdom teeth. Yeah.
Yeah, the molars. So basically, you have like the front six teeth, and then you start drawing the molars, which basically change the angle and go inside the mouth. And usually, we don't see them as much or all the time. So take a look. So let's say that in the front, I have like the two front teeth that look kind of like that. Then next to them, I have another two teeth, which looks actually kind of similar in shape, just smaller. So I can draw another shape here, another shape here. The shape is kind of similar, just smaller. Now I draw the fangs and kind of try to notice that I draw one teeth, and then when I draw the other, I don't draw it completely next to it. I kind of I kind of draw it a little bit overlapping one another. Not too much right now with the front teeth, but that's in order to give like the feeling of a curvature to the teeth. Uh, so let's say right now when I'm drawing the fangs, I will go and imagine that it goes a little bit, one tooth is covering the other just a bit. Now, this is basically the front six teeth, and it's kind of easy to memorize. We have like the four, which are more flat, and then the fangs on each side. This is the front six teeth. Those are the teeth you will see most often when a person is talking or yelling or whatever, and he exposes the teeth. Then, when we draw the molars, if it's not like someone really opening the mouth and we can see inside, what happens is those molars are starting to change angle and go one behind the other. So we basically don't see them as much. So here I can actually try to kind of have them really overlapping and covering one another, and then I will get a feeling of them like curving to the inside of the mouth. If I'll try to draw it in an angle so you can see what happens there, let's say we see the bottom teeth. So I have like this small tooth here and this small tooth here, and see that the bottom teeth are actually in the same order like the upper teeth. So I have like the two front and flat bottom teeth. Now I have like two more that are similar in shape, just smaller. Then I have here the fangs. Now I'm basically breaking the angle, and I kind of thinking on these teeth, I drew it like purposely, like a small box, like boxes, right? So now I have the molars, and the molars go inside. and another one here, and another one here, another one here. So these are becoming like kind of less important. We can actually imagine it inside a skull, right? Like in, so basically that's the order of the teeth. Try to memorize like the front six teeth, and after the front six teeth, we go like we have like here we got one, two, three, four, five, six, and then basically you break the angle inside. Then you can go here and create like those molars when you break the angle. And also keep in mind that the bottom teeth are a little bit like less, like the upper teeth are wider in their angle. So when I create like the bottom teeth, I kind of imagine that it's a little bit narrower curvature. And then here again, those teeth will be overlapping and covering one another to create the feeling of this curvature. Now, if I memorize like the teeth, I can basically create the contour for the teeth kind of easily, because I know, okay, I got like the two front and then one and on every side and then the fangs and then and so on. So it's kind of easy to hint at the shape of the teeth in different ways. Now, what if I want to draw the teeth in like different angles the same way I did here? So I kind of like did this one many times and I know it by heart. But what if I want to draw different angles and let's say the perspective is kind of difficult for me? So the way we approach it is kind of similar with what we did with the mouth, creating this band-aid and drawing the lips. I'm creating basically like a shoehorn shape. And this shoehorn will be the shape that basically kind of shows me the perspective of the entire teeth. So let's hide this layer and create a new one, and I will grab a different color. Let's do something like that. So let's imagine that this shoehorn is not like totally rounded like that. It's more like we have the front teeth and then we break the angle. It's a little bit more square. It's a little bit more angular. So what I'm doing is like I'm creating, let's say, the inside. And I always take perspective into consideration, even when I do that. Now, let's do the same and create the outside. So this is like the shape that I'll be using. Now let's give it a little bit of length. And I will also imagine like this part over here. And we will imagine that there is just another one underneath. We don't need to draw all of it. So basically, that will be the shape that I imagine in different angles when I want to kind of mark where the teeth will be and the angle of those teeth. But we need to take also to remember that the teeth are actually protruding to the outside. They are not as flat as I drew them here. So we kind of got like, let's say, the correct anatomical structure. We have like a more simplified cartoonish structure, which I did here. And we have also kind of an exaggeration where we make him concave, like kind of concave to the inside of the mouth. We can see it with different like monsters or wherever we want to make the character a little bit more animalistic. So it will look something like that. So let's say with like the more anatomical human teeth, we will basically have the same shoehorn shape, but it will be protruding to the outside. So if I'll have like a volume line or a middle center line, it will be like that. And then with the bottom lip, it will go to the inside. And then this one will protrude here and here. So it's basically protruding to the outside, and it's not flat like in this example. Okay? And we can also make it concave and go to the inside. So let's say I have another shoehorn here, but then I will make it actually go, and if this is the center line, it will go like that. Okay? So that's basically kind of like the three main, I don't know, version of creating the general shape, the bigger shape of the teeth that I usually use. Most of the time, if you're drawing like regular humanoid characters, then you'll probably want to learn like this shape first, because that will probably be the easiest shape to do. But if we're creating a skull, if you're drawing like the human skull, you'll probably notice like the shape of the teeth where they're protruding to the outside. And that basically will be the shape you're using also when drawing like a simplified skull. So that's one thing. And then these shapes basically can allow me, let's take the opacity down a little bit. These shapes will allow me to actually decide how I want to, let's say here, I want to create like very simplified, cartoonish, kind of cartoonish teeth. And here are the molars going to the inside, right, like that. And here, I can decide if I want to like show all the different details or just some of it. So basically, I'm just going with the shape of this shoehorn. And obviously, that will give me a more realistic structure of the teeth are actually going to the outside a bit. And the bottom teeth will actually be a little bit inside under the upper the upper teeth. So it will look a little bit more anatomically correct and not that flat. And here I can kind of draw like, let's say, the mouth of I don't know, Wolverine or something. So I'm just giving like a small hint of how I want those teeth to look. And what I usually do, I said that basically I kind of break down drawing the mouth to three different subjects. So here the teeth are still closed and I still didn't open the jaw. Um, let's say that I want to show these teeth. I will hide hide that for just a sec, and let's bring the opacity up. Basically, what we want to do is kind of practice drawing an open lips and wrap them around those shapes. So, for instance, let's grab a different color. For instance, let's say that I want like here to create like a shape, like an asymmetrical shape like that. So I kind of try to imagine how this shape will look And now it will actually go around. And I really imagine like the volume lines to it. And then I will try to imagine how it goes and really like goes around, go around the teeth and like really wrap them. And let's say that here I want to create maybe like this wide smiley mouth. So then again, I will kind of try to get a feeling of how I want to wrap the teeth around. And something that it's important to note or know is that whenever we open the lips or open the mouth, the lips are being stretched. And that means that if we like give like this wide smile, then usually the lips will be a little bit thinner. They are being stretched, and not only they are being stretched, they are being stretched against the teeth, which will add like a little bit more compression to the lips. So those lips will kind of look a little bit thinner. Um, let's say that right here I want to create something like that. So then again, I will kind of try to imagine like the volume of the lips, and try to figure out how those lips will kind of go and wrap around the teeth. So basically, I'm really simplifying stuff. I'm I'm kind of try to convert everything to like simple volumetric shapes inside my mind, and like do very like basic manipulations to them, like wrapping a shape around something. So that's kind of the logic behind like try to imagine the way it will look. And sometimes I see a lot of students when they start drawing characters and they're drawing like open mouths, what they do is like they kind of treat it as a sticker. They say, I would probably need to show it. So let's say I have a character. Let's do something quick. Let's say, so I covered my character with a lot of hair, so I won't need to draw everything. So let's say this is my character. So a lot of times, what students will do, they kind of treat the mouth, and it's I guess it's okay with very stylized and cartoonish characters, but they draw it like a sticker. They say, okay, I want this shape, and I want to show here and here, and now it can look like kind of cool with like different styles if it's very simplified. But if I'm trying to do something that is even like semi-realistic, then it might be problematic, because like if we imagine, let's say this, I want to make this character a little bit more believable or a little bit more anatomically correct. So if we'll try to imagine where is the skull or how the skull of this character is looking. So we will see that this teeth should be here, right? Even if it's a simplified skull. And we will see that the the bottom teeth would probably be more like that. And then we see there is a big difference between where we placed the teeth, like in the cavity of the mouth, and where it should actually be. Now, in this character, because it's kind of like a doodle of a very simplified character, it might work. But once you create even a semi-realistic character, then you kind of need to take into consideration where the actual teeth will be. And this is where knowing the structure of the skull and the structure of the teeth will come very handy. So a lot of time what I will do, I can actually start drawing or sketching a character. And when I'm drawing the mouth, either I will imagine the skull and the teeth inside. It's not like creating like a mouth icon, a smile icon, a frown mouth icon. It's like actually try to figuring out and imagine like the structure of the skull and teeth inside, and then it will look like more believable, more like it will have more integrity to the structure. And sometimes I will actually like sketch like really fast, like partial part of the skull, like only partially, so it can look something like that. Let's say I'm starting to draw a character or sketch a character. So let's do like a small. Okay. So right now I have like a basis for what I want to do. This one, and let's say that this is my character. And now I want to draw the mouth. And what I will do is I will start with the mouth cavity. So let's say I will draw the cavity of the mouth like that. And I will take the chin a little bit further because it has like a small chin to it. So let's say this is the mouth cavity. Now, instead of jumping right in there, and start drawing teeth, which I can, I will take a second. I can imagine it or I can actually draw it. And right now I will draw it just for the sake of the example. But what I will try to do is like take a moment and say, okay, what if where did this line come from? Okay. So then I would say, what if I will take like just I will imagine where the skull should be. Like this is like the cheekbone. And then what I will see is that the upper lips should be here, and the bottom lips should be here, and the jaw should be like this. Now, right now, I'm kind of drawing like the actual skull inside. But sometimes I will just like create like these very small markings to show me where it's supposed to be. And once I can actually see where it's supposed to be, I will have like more, like I will be more confident, like in drawing the teeth where I want them to be, right? So I haven't talked yet about drawing like the open mouth, but I will kind of feel better about the placement of where I want the teeth to appear because I kind of like gave a thought to the structure and what goes inside the mouth exactly. And maybe I can even like give a little hint of the tongue there behind those teeth and so on. So sometimes like actually try to imagine and be aware what goes inside the head will go a long way when drawing those teeth. Um, what do you say? Let's take a look if we have. Yeah, we do have like two canvases. So let's visit those canvases and see if we can give a few tips to what's going on there. Oh, I like this shark.
Wow.
That's a cool
Great,
one.
great format.
Yeah, I really liked it. So if I will give like maybe one small critique, is I feel like that, like let's say perspective wise, I would probably imagine that if this shoehorn, I will call it shoehorn just for the explanation, if this shoehorn in perspectives look like that, so in this perspective, the upper shoehorn should look like that. And that means like the teeth should have like different curvature to them. So we kind of, it's like the camera is kind of placed below, like underneath the height of this teeth for the way I see it. So it probably, if I'm going with this line, it would probably be like that. So I would place this here, this here, this here. I will do it the same exact way. They're kind of like really stylized and they look cool, but I would probably see like the back teeth going around here. And that will be like more correct, like perspective wise. But not always like the correct way is not always the right way, if it makes sense. Like sometimes like the way it feels, it's kind of more important than if it's the correct way. I kind of like the way it feels, and I really like the touch of the toothbrush here. And so let's look at those lips here. So another thing we can actually learn from this mouth, and like the lips look great, but if I look at this curve right here, and if we imagine like the teeth inside, that these are very, very narrow teeth. They are very, very narrow, and usually like the curvature of the shoehorn, and usually it will be like a little bit wider. So I would imagine like this curve, instead of being like that, it should actually go and be a little bit more like that. So this is kind of like where I feel it goes like the wrong way and make the teeth feel a little bit narrow in there. But like the lips are great. And I really liked, I will show other people watching, like this shape here is great because we can kind of feel how these lips are protruding outside and how this protruding outside, and I can already imagine like how it will interact with the different planes of the face, which so it's done very, very nicely. This one as well. Great stuff. So first of all, I really like the way you plan the skull inside. Um, I would say that like for me, with the proportion of the head, um, I would do two different. I want to show two different things. One is like try to divide the head in three thirds. So that means that I'm taking like here, where is the plane change from the front plane to the upper plane? So this will be the marking of my upper third to the eyebrows. So this is one third. And then the second third should be the bottom of the nose. So we already see that this is a little bit shorter. And then this is a little bit longer from this one, but shorter than this one. So I would probably, obviously, if it's a specific character, then it's fine. We can play with proportion as much as we like. And if it's a stylized character, then obviously we can do with proportion whatever we want. I just like showing this to other people maybe watching, or in case it wasn't intentional, like in case we you want to achieve like a more ideal proportion. So in that way, I would kind of try to make those thirds more equal. And another thing we can actually learn from here is that when the bottom jaw opens, I still didn't get a chance to cover it, but when the bottom jaw opens, like this angle is kind of supposed to change. It can't stay like the same angle because basically, like our pivot point of the jaw is right here. Let's imagine that we have like this bolt right here. So once the jaw opens, it doesn't drop down. Right now, it feels like the jaw kind of dropped down. We want to get a better feeling of the jaw going down and backwards, which will change a little bit the angle right here of this part. Um, so that would probably be another thing that we can actually test it. So let's see if I can do that. So what I'm doing is I'm copying the shape of the jaw right here. And let's also put like the marking here so I know where it goes. And then I will take this jaw and I will put it in the same place right here. So actually, yeah, I think it goes to the back quite enough. Oh, no, 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 no. Uh, uh, okay. Yeah, so I actually think it looks quite well. It doesn't really drop down. It does like kind of like rotates to the back. So forget about it. It looks great. So I will just go maybe and touch a little bit those thirds. Great stuff. Great sketches.
Interesting.
Interesting. First of all, I really like the colors. So for me, I probably imagined that you kind of drew the lips first and then decided to throw a little bit of color there, which is awesome. For me, like there are so many different approaches to painting and drawing. I actually know a few artists that kind of they don't even sketch. They kind of throw color and start placing like different shapes and different colors and kind of like I don't know what's the word, like working it until it comes together. Um, but for me, I always kind of try to achieve like the correct structure first before going to color and before going to shading and all the different stuff. Um, and like these lips here, they kind of look very, very like stylized and simplified, and it doesn't seem like like trying to get like the correct anatomy or the volume was the main objective here. So it looked like very, very simplified. Okay, I don't think we have another one here, right? Oh, you're actually fixing the shark. Amazing. I like the shark. It should be like a tattoo design.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So maybe I will talk a little bit about opening the jaw because I kind of touched it a little bit in that sketch. So let's say we have a skull here, a human skull. Do something like very simple. So this is will be the that will be the brow bone. And as I said, like the curvature of the teeth coming out, I can even take it a little bit more. And that will be like the upper teeth. And here, I can take it a little bit more on the cheekbone. And that will be like the base for our skull. Now, if I want to like imagine the jaw, I will create it in a different layer. So I have the bottom teeth go a little bit more inside the chin, and then we will connect everything together like that. So let's say that will be the shape of our skull. Let's take it and mm, remind me, Sol, can I place? Yeah, you think I can?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was
So
just going to mention that earlier.
thank you. Yeah, I actually used the wrong tool. I took like the move tool instead of the.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Got it. I wasn't sure what happened. I looked away for a second earlier.
Yeah. So let's say that this is like right here, this is our pivot point. So what we want to avoid is we don't want to open the mouth and get the feeling of the jaw dropping down, which a lot of time I see people do. So what we want to imagine is let's take this pivot and put it right here. And whenever I will actually explain it before I'll show it. Whenever we open the jaw, few things happen. First of all, the chin not only goes down, it goes down and to the back because of the angle or the radius it moves. So it goes down into the back. And like the corner of the jaw will actually go back and up. So I will do that. So the chin goes down and back, and the corner will go back and up. Okay. Now the corner of the jaw will move much less than the chin. So whenever we rotate something, the farther we are from the pivot, the more movement we have. It basically goes like a longer way in the rotation. The closer you are to the pivot, basically, you, I don't know if you know. I always say to my students like, did you have like in the playgrounds you have this carousel, which you have like the a steering wheel in the middle. You know what I'm talking about, or it's only
A merry-go-round?
I think so. You have like this carousel with a steering wheel in the middle, and basically, when you try to turn the steering wheel, which is fixed in place, the carousel start moving around it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are like plague. Yeah, totally. I don't know what those things are called, but I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
and you always had like this jerk kid, which start to like rotate it really really fast, and everybody right.
Yeah,
And then
totally.
and then if you come closer to the steering wheel to the center, then it's not so bad because the rotation is not like that massive, right? And the further you get from the pivot, you kind of feel the rotation a lot more. So that's my
Yeah.
messed up childhood.
No,
But
it's perfect.
so basically here, because the rotation or the pivot point is kind of close to this corner of the jaw, this part of the jaw won't move as much. So once I starting to rotate, see the direction of the chin. Basically, the chin moves a lot more, like I showed, like in the beginning of the stream, where when I open my mouth, like my bottom teeth goes probably to where the chin was. So that's probably that. So see how much the chin moved from its original place, and you will see that like the corner of the jaw didn't move that much. It's right here. It didn't move as much as the chin. So we can actually learn something from it, because that means that if you're starting to draw, let's say you're starting to sketch a basic head like plan, right? I'm starting to plan the head, and right now I'll go front view. It will be easier. So let's say when I started to kind of sketch the head, I still didn't think about the fact that I want to draw the mouth open. So maybe I'm doing something like that. And right now, so I'm doing something like that. And right now, I want to create like the mouth open. So I decided, let's open the mouth. And then I'm doing like this wide, very big open mouth. And what happens is that basically my chin is gone because I didn't have any room left for the chin. I took all that space for the open mouth. So what happened is that I planned the head like just a common regular head structure with a closed jaw. Then I drew an open mouth, and not just an open mouth, an open jaw. Once I open the jaw, I basically have to take the chin down. I need to change the structure of the head. So there is kind of a quick fix to it, especially if you're doing it like in a front view. So basically, what we just saw with the skull is that the chin will go down like very noticeably, but the corners of the jaw don't move as much. So I don't really need to change the corners of the jaw, only the placement of the chin. Now, how do I know how much do I need to move the chin? So that is actually kind of easy to figure out. What we want to do is like look at the space between the upper teeth and the bottom teeth. Because basically, what happened is when the jaw was closed, those bottom teeth were here on the same line. Now the bottom teeth moved here, so that means that this space right here, obviously it's not the exact space because the jaw goes down and backwards. But I can see like the space between the teeth, and then I can actually say or imagine that this space, oh, I did it in the same uh, layer, so I'll fix that. So now I can actually imagine that the space I created between the teeth is the space that I want to move the chin to. So basically, the new placement of my chin should be, I'll take this a little bit, should be probably here somewhere. And we also mentioned that we don't need to move like the corners of the jaw as much. So I can actually just like do that and create like the chin here. And I got like the movement that I wanted to my character, and I drop her jaw down.
Wow, that's a really good trick. That's a great
Thanks.
trick.
And actually, thanks, man. The same thing goes if we're drawing the character in an angle. So let's say, imagine this. Let's say that I don't even have to draw like a complete character. I can just imagine that I have like a simplified, very simplified skull here. So that will be my future character, right? And if I decide that this is the upper teeth, and let's say when I drew it in such a way that I drew the entire shape, the entire head. Now I want to open the mouth, or I want to draw an open mouth just the same way I did and open the teeth. So if I'm opening the mouth, I will basically, let's get rid of this line here. So basically, if I'm opening the mouth right now, I'm doing like something like that. And I want to do the same thing. And the upper teeth are here, and I want to do the same thing. So basically, I look at this distance right here, and I try to imagine like the same distance in the bottom, and I would move like here. But you have to take into consideration that when once you're doing the same thing in an angle, you're not only dropping the chin down, you need to drop it down and back. So look that this is chin here and this new chin is here. And I kind of imagine this chin going down and backwards. So I can move this chin right here and kind of move the jaw and basically create like the new placement of the chin, the same way that I did like in the front view. So basically I'm using the teeth to measure how much the chin drops down when I do it. But this is kind of a fix where you're starting sketching the head and you didn't decide like in advance that you're about to create an open jaw. For me, it's much more convenient to basically like sketch the head with an open jaw uh, from the begin with. So like instead of doing like the regular, uh, I don't know, Loomis method or whatever method you're using, let's say you're kind of doing something that looks like that, more or less. Okay. Instead of doing that, what I like to do when I'm thinking of creating like an open jaw, I basically I create the top part and then I really try to get the feeling of where I'm about to place the teeth. I don't really need to draw the entire skull. I really just kind of try to place the teeth and then I want to place like the bottom teeth, the same shoehorn. I try to imagine this shape in perspective. You can try to imagine it in different angles. So I put this shape in perspective and then I kind of create the jaw already in an angle like that.
Mhm.
And from here, I can actually continue and complete the sketch and basically creating my character when I already have like the placement of where the jaw will be. And I know that if I want to create a mouth, then this mouth will be uncovering the teeth in a certain way. So I don't need to fix anything later. I kind of do it all in advance. But it really depends because sometimes you obviously you know what you want to do or what you've been asked to do, and sometimes you're just doodling and kind of it's a search.
Right. How often in your own designs do you apply this approach? And how much of this is just burned to memory now where you can visualize the skull and the shapes? Or do you always kind of take this approach with your designs?
That's a great question. So that will probably be depending on the shape of the character I'm drawing. So if it will be like a very like let's say a common average head, the basic superhero comic character, which I did here, I probably won't need to plan the skull. I won't feel the need to plan the skull because I did it many times and I can probably imagine it. But it's not only the character I'm drawing; it's the character I'm drawing and the angle that I'm drawing the character in. So if like the basic like three quarters view, it's probably what I practice the most. Um, so I believe that here I won't feel the need to actually like
Yeah.
do this.
So the
But
things that are comfortable you can apply, and
exactly,
when the angles are getting really challenging, or you start to break away from the things that are comfortable, you can use this as a problem solving technique, essentially to just correct and self evaluate.
so you actually said it best. So you know what? So now I can summarize it. When I'm in my comfort zone, I won't need to draw the skull. When I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, that's when I will try to plan the skull. So
Yeah, it's very cool. It works so well. It's such a great technique. It's so great to watch, and it just you can see the results transform immediately when you start throwing the skull in there and just dealing with small measurements. Again, your usage of measurements. I think these examples that you've put together are really fantastic and super strong. It's you can see it right away.
thanks, buddy. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. You know that actually with drawing the skull, it's something that I also do with like very cartoonish characters. And one thing that I feel like I really got out of it is actually developing consistency. And it's like a totally different subject, but sometimes I've been asked like, how do you stay consistent when you try to draw the character with different facial expressions or drawing the same character from different angles? And I feel like that sometimes the reason why people find it harder to stay consistent, it's because they still approach it more as lines and less as a structure. And even when they know about like creating structure and volume, they don't really like take the time to actually say, okay, this is the measurement of the skull, this is the placement of the cheekbones in comparison to the eyes or in comparison to the nose. So even when I'm drawing, like, let's do something nice before we wrap it up, right? So even when, let's say I'm doing something, like I try to do something really exaggerated. So let's say this is my character right here. Okay. So let's say this is my character. And now I want to draw this character in different angles or in maybe with different expressions. So once you kind of, hmm, let's duplicate it and move it here. Once basically you become aware of the skull, what happens is that now I say, okay, this is like the nose cavity, and this is like where those orbitals will be. And his teeth will be very, very long, and his cheekbones will be here. And it doesn't, obviously, it doesn't need to be like a realistic skull. It's a very cartoonish, simplified skull. But why we want to be aware of the skull? Because the skull shows us what will be moving and what won't move. So sometimes people change things that are not supposed to change. They make the forehead smaller. Now, and I'm not talking about raising the eyebrows and making the distance between the eyebrows and the hair smaller. I'm talking about actually taking the plane of the forehead and make it smaller, or the making like the space between the mouth cavity or the bottom of the upper teeth and the nose, making it smaller. So even if I do different expression and motions with my mouth, the teeth won't be moving from out of place. My nose won't change its height. The placement of my orbital won't move. Now, I'm not talking about like styles where you can super exaggerate and squash and stretch, and you can squash and stretch the skull too. But if I'm taking like this skull into consideration, so let's put it right here. Now I will lower the opacity just a bit. And let's say that I want to change, like I'm thinking of changing a little bit the facial expression. So now, if I'm aware of the skull, and let's even like erase those eyebrows. So there are some things that won't be moving, like the nostril can move. It won't change the placement of the nose, but the nostril can move. And now, if I want to actually change his mouth, I can change it, but the teeth will remain in the same place. So I can really be confident when changing the mouth and basically keep the teeth in the same place. And let's say that is like eyebrows change. Okay. And now, even if I hide the skull, like it will feel consistent to the original, because like what's supposed to be like hard bony structure stays in place, and what moves is those like different tissues like skin and fat and tendons and muscles. Those are the things that will be moving, not like the bony structure. So that's one thing. And also, once you're aware of the shape of the skull, let's grab the skull right here. Once you're aware of the shape of the skull, once you try to turn the head, you're not only thinking of the character on the face, you're actually thinking of turning the skull, like changing the angle of the skull, and keeping the structure of the skull like in integrity. And that will, for me, that helps a lot, like being consistent and try to stay on model.
That's a great one to wrap up on. In a great synopsis overall of just the general approach, the value of the skull, understanding position and structure, consistently super valuable and important. And I think this relates very much to, as you've kind of deconstruct this for the mouth in thinking about visualization, but this has been consistently carried throughout every lesson that you've broken down for the character. And I'm seeing tons of consistencies in the way that you approach these things that really click and make sense. So thank you. This is a really great exercise and some really fantastic examples.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
Yeah, thanks to those who jumped in and contributed to the canvases. Appreciate your work and some great examples in there, as well as some good reviews from you, Udi. For the rest of you folks, everybody that's tuning in, we'll be following up with more character design topics. Moving on to next week, we'll be making an announcement earlier. I think at this stage, do you feel we're ready to get back into compiling all these together to focus on the character for next week?
Yeah, so what I was thinking is kind of like taking it all and like mixing it together. And I wanted to talk like next time, talking about like basically creating like stylized heads, and then we kind of do everything together. I will talk about the eyes and the noses and the mouth and everything in the structure while creating different heads. So that will be fun. It will basically be creating a lot of different characters, and just like maybe explaining as I go what is the thought process behind what I'm doing.
That sounds fantastic. It kind of makes me think of just like a Odie jam session where you can like flesh out a
Exactly.
whole character and go a little deeper now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Well, don't miss it. Stay tuned. We will be back in 2 weeks with Udi to hit up on that stream. So keep an eye on Discord. Thanks again, Udi. Appreciate your time, man. This was so much fun.
My pleasure, always.
Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time in Magma Classroom.
Bye bye.